Hey guys, my name is Thomas Brush. I'm the creator of a game called Pinstripe. I'm also working on a game called Once Upon a Coma, and I've been making games full-time for about 10 years, and I got this email from a guy named Nate, and it was, I got sick and I woke up and I had a fever and I was reading my email on my phone in bed, and this email just caught my attention, and I felt like I needed to share it with everybody, so I asked Nate if I could share it with everybody to give you guys some insight into maybe what it's like to be an indie developer when things aren't going the way that you want them to. So I'm going to read you his email, which is sounds like a really boring video, but I feel like a lot of you might be really interested in what he has to say. So I'm going to read you some of it, and I've taken out some parts that I feel aren't the best things to share, and it's a very open and honest email, which I very much appreciate from Nate. So it starts out, hello and nice to meet you. My name is Nate, and I won't say his last name. I own and operate a small indie game studio in Pennsylvania. I wanted to say that I recently stumbled into your channel, and I really appreciate what you're doing, blah, blah, blah. Stumbled into an interview you had with Tim Ruswick, and I was like, oh, so I'm not truly alone here. So that intrigued me. I was like, what do you mean? So he said, I hope this doesn't come across as a sob story. I'm just pretty much at the end of my rope lately. I'm not really sure who else I can talk to since my situation is so very different from my friends and my family. And I gotta say, I absolutely sympathize with that. It's a very strange career path, making games. Basically, I've always known that I wanted to be self-employed, and I have made that a reality since 2015, which not a lot of people can say. But it was not easy getting to that point since then. Running everything entirely alone has definitely taken its toll on me. Again, I understand that sentiment. It's tough. So he graduated with a BS in computer science in 2013, knowing that he didn't really want to work for anybody else. Again, I sympathize with that. It's just not how his brain was programmed. So, blah, blah, blah. He was home on Christmas break his senior year, and it hit him that graduating with no marketable skills. He was going to be graduating with no marketable skills, and quote, I did not want to work for anybody else. So while school did help me get the foundation for software development under my belt, that is pretty much all it did. Going to college ended up being my largest regret thus far. But more on that later. I hopped onto Amazon and picked up the newest, highest-rated game development book I could find, and I read it cover to cover over the weekend. He made a Flash game, released it. He also made a game for Game Maker, and so he learned a lot of things, but never really made a commercially successful game, which that's kind of how it starts out with a lot of game developers. So this is where the story gets a little bit interesting. So he continues to experiment, and quote, before I knew it, graduation day came and went, and I did not have any job prospects. So I did what any super naive indie developer wannabe does, and I started to concept a game that would turn into a huge learning experience. It also was a total failure and never got past prototyping, which that's normal for most of us. Due to my limited skills, limited skills, knowledge, and just the way that I approached it. So instead of job hunting during the glorious 6 months grace period before my student loan payments would activate, I got slightly better with learning to make games, but I had shipped nothing and ended up bailing on the project. Panicking because of the student debts, I took the first job offer I got, which was far from ideal, for a manufacturing facility that I had worked part-time all throughout high school. It was a miserable 12-hour shifts at night. Man, that's tough. Man. Good pay and somewhat okay benefits, but the 12-hour nights made me a zombie of a human, not to mention I worked specifically as a blow mold operator, which basically means I spent entire shifts inhaling molten plastic in a literal kill zone. Whew. It makes me think of Eraserhead, like that environment and I'm sure that's how it felt, just very dark and lonely. But we all got to work something after college, so I'm sure you learned a lot. I worked in the very rear of the facility next to the refrigeration silos and was told basically If a specific light came on, it meant there was a coolant leak and I had literally 15 seconds to get out of the area, or basically melts your nose, throats, and lungs. I did actually try to get an entry-level programming job, since I had no professional experience outside of college, other than a few Flash games I'd made. I made it to a few actual interviews, which aside from being terrifying to me, my heart was just not in it, and I did not have a poker face. Spoiler alert, as you may know, jobs near me at least don't give a F if you can make games. They more so want to see if you can make a good drone, which I think is the main reason I never could see myself working in the field on a professional level. I catch a lot of flack from people around me, and especially friends who graduated alongside of me who make about $70,000 to $90,000 a year. And they will openly brag about how easily and cushy they have it, which, you know, a lot of my friends, you know, who make good money and or at least when I was struggling, who made good money, it wouldn't be that they bragged, but I understood that feeling of knowing how much people made, and it was kind of difficult. And call me crazy for not cashing in on my degree. I wholeheartedly disagree after working for myself for so long. Okay, here it's starting to get more and more interesting, and this is where it gets challenging. So the factory job was a double-edged sword, and it ended up being somewhat a good experience because he meets this like-minded individual, and they start making games together. So they released this game called Flower Tower, and it quickly snowballs on YouTube. I mean, this has got to feel really good. Sales at this point were, quote, amazing for us, but still not exactly what I was looking for, since I was doing it full-time now. Steam has their 30% and then their taxes, and of course, when you own 50% of your company, you only get 50%. So his partner gets 50%, and there's just a little bit left over to keep this guy running. So Nate continues here. And this is where this is my favorite part of the email, and this is really important for you guys to understand. I'm kind of getting chills because it's so scary, and it's something we should really, really think about before you go to college. So he says, quote, "This is where I should touch on college being the worst regret of my life. Well, from a financial aspect, it was and still is. I have never been able to afford to pay a cent higher than my minimum payment. Not being coached or anything on the nature of the subject of loans or interest, I only made minimum payments. I graduated with about $125,000 of debt. Never missing a payment, I still owe $92,000. In the past 5 years, I've paid almost $80,000 towards this $125,000. Wow. Way to go. Wow. It is almost... Yeah, never mind. Yeah, I'm just looking at these numbers. It's 99% interest. My lower APR loan, blah, 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 is 9%. I will not be debt-free until my early 40s. Dude, I'm sorry. I was 23 when I graduated, and I am 28 now, and I won't even be debt-free. What happens is, after X years of making payments, the loan kills itself. So I will actually have a balance, but time will erase it. At least that is my understanding, you know, but that's the thing, right? Do we ever fully understand student loans? My goodness. The student debt has been controlling my life in the worst way imaginable, and is only really has snowballed over the years in terms of stress it brings to my life. Lately, I've been able to shut it out and try not to let it control me, but it usually ends up finding a way. I just really wish I could go back and tell myself what I know now, but that is how hindsight always works, I suppose. Man, this is really turning into a novel, and if you made it this far, I really appreciate it. Hey, I appreciate the email, Nate. This is really cool. I mean, it's interesting and really insightful, so I appreciate that. I just feel like I didn't want to bring up finances at all, and now that I have you, might be thinking, okay, this guy just wants a handout, LOL. That is far from the truth, and I don't think you do, dude. You just need some encouragement. I just wanted to paint as accurate a picture as I can for when I ask you, what the F should I be doing next, since I genuinely do not know, and as I started this email with, I really don't know who else I can talk to about this. Runs out of money, invests in this is me summarizing like a good chunk of the email, which I don't really want to get into because it's just a big personal story, and I don't know if Nate would appreciate me sharing it, but basically, and I've done this too, where he invested in some things to hopefully get out of the situation he was in, basically kind of getting rich quick kind of thing, and I've been there. So investing in things that didn't pay off and actually made things worse. Some of that included paying YouTubers to actually play his games, which can be not a good idea. Sometimes it's a great idea, sometimes it's not. Okay, so quote, "So I still have a fight left in me. I somehow wake up to be super motivated in 2018. I have direction. I'm working on some things. I'm trying to learn more about marketing. So I decide I'm going to make 123 Slaughter Me Street Remastered," which this guy made Slaughter Me Street, which is a pretty cool game. You can take a look at it on Steam. So he makes a remastered edition. And since the 3-year anniversary is coming up, he decided to do that. So quote, "I have a solid team now with me, mostly focused on 3D, and not to brag, but I got good at Unity and efficient with it." Good job. And I mean, rightfully so. I'm inside of it all day, every single day. That's awesome. So I start putting teasers out on Twitter. I wake up shortly after to a cease and desist from somebody who is related business-wise to this guy. So the project was put on hold because of this cease and desist, which I can't honestly tell you whether it was 100% his fault or 100% your fault. I don't know the story, but regardless, that sucks. It ended up being extremely expensive to work with lawyers. Dude, I've been there. I know how it is. Usually the bill is like double what you thought it would be. But anyway, he says, quote, "This was a super hard blow for me. I didn't understand since my former partner had basically become a YouTuber creating..." I'm not going to read this here. Anyway, his partner is doing something completely different, and so it doesn't even matter. At least in this position, he feels like it was kind of a pointless cease and desist because it wasn't going to really hurt his partner. But I don't know the truth there fully. You never really know the whole story. So he says, quote, "After all these things that are challenging where you can't really work on this game," he says, "I'm almost finished, I promise." Okay, so this is where it keeps getting better and better in terms of, it's a good story, it's really challenging to hear. And I do feel a lot for Nate, which is why I wanted to share it with you guys. But he says, "For the record, this was going to be brief, but the more I thought about it, I decided the more I included, the better. I started writing this email at 11 a.m. EST, and it's currently 2 p.m. It's a good letter, dude. I'm glad you did. And I've spent a long time. One time I spent 2 hours writing an email to a very prominent YouTuber. I could say it. Felix. And it was like a paragraph, so I understand how you feel. He says, "I should publish this email to some capacity." Okay, anyway. So during the legal struggle, he was losing money, and he had 0 projects that he could launch legally without, people he'd worked on in the past working on these with him, wanting to get involved as well. So he quite literally said to himself, amidst, quote, "a daily existential crisis, a rabbit hole, fever dream, downward spiral thought process, it doesn't end here. I got goosebumps. You just have to make something better than anything you have ever made." I might have heard it in Gandalf's voice as well. "I ended up concepting, creating, and shipping a brand new IP. Still have no idea how I ended up summoning the courage and dedication to do this, which I would consider my most comprehensive game to date, called Midnight Evil." Cool. It was actually extremely well received. Basically, it went above and beyond what he wanted. But what ended up happening was, not to get too detailed here, but he got number 2 trending on YouTube, paid for some YouTubers to help him out, and didn't get a spike in sales. Who's been there? I've been there. It's tough. So sales are just lukewarm, and he's looking around for help, and he doesn't know where to go, what the next step is. So here's the conclusion of the email, guys. And then I'll give my advice, which is what Nate was asking for to begin with. He says, "At the end of the day, all I want to do is make games. I don't want to carry this debt, and I just want to work for myself. I don't want to be rich. I just want to be at peace. Mentally, physically. The thought of returning to a factory job after doing what I love for so long, it haunts me. The thought of starting an entry-level job for someone else so they can make money off of my work is even worse. I lay awake at night and I think about all the stuff that I can do and that I've overcome over the years, that I've been in this rat race, and it doesn't make sense to me. How is it that a 17-year-old Twitch streamer, high school dropout, they can make a lot of money? I'm not going to go into detail what he says here. But I am stretching myself so thin and can barely keep my loans paid. I haven't actually saved money since I was working in a factory. It always goes back to the company or bills, meaning his company. And it blows my mind that if any of the top dog YouTubers just took 15 minutes and played any of the games, there's a high likelihood that money won't be a problem for me. Actually, dude, Nate, by the way, I don't think that's true. I've had really big YouTubers play my games, including Jacksepticeye, and I didn't see a huge spike in sales. That said, I am paying the bills, so that's good. It really messes with your psyche. That's what he said. So I wanted to reiterate, I'm not looking for a handout or you to employ me or anything. I just wondering, since you have been in my shoes before, what should I be doing? I started to strap down on my company's only other assets other than games, which is YouTube. I do want to help other would-be developers in the technical aspects and also in an effort to grow the size of my channel, blah, blah, blah. But I'm really not sure what else to do. Thank you for making it this far, Thomas. I look forward to, and thank you everybody for making it this far. And I look forward to hopefully hearing from you. If not, I totally get it. I realize this kind of thing is a good way to get blacklisted. No, not in this case, dude. At least that is what I used to tell myself when I would reveal too much to people in the past. In this cutthroat industry we all reside. That's a tough email from Mr. Nate. Thank you, Nate, for your email. Here's my advice. There's a lot of things here that you can't really do anything about. And by the way, guys, I sent this message to Nate, and so he knows my response here. There's a lot of things here that you can't really do anything about, like student debt, unless you want Bernie Sanders elected and somehow. I'm laughing because I just don't see it happening, but in terms of or being possible, but like getting student debt erased, that's a huge thing and a huge problem, and we need to figure it out. I just don't know if it's possible to actually erase it, but we'll see. So there's not anything you can do about your student debt, and alternatively, the pattern that I see here is that a lot of us as indie developers, we look at a problem we have in life and we think, oh, I can just make a game and it will solve the problem. I'll make X amount of dollars and it will solve the problem. But I think the truth is that the indie game industry is really getting more and more challenging, really way more challenging than I thought it would be for sure. It's part of the reason why I do YouTube, because it brings in some supplemental income, some predictable income. If I didn't do YouTube, same story with Nate here. If I didn't do YouTube, I would be fine, but the future would look bleak because I would be burning through cash way faster. But now I have this supplemental income from YouTube, and it helps my mental state. So what I told Nate is I said, I think you should go get a job. And so that you can recover mentally, and so that you can not have to worry about the bills and not have to worry about maybe not one day being able to be responsible for yourself. The best thing anybody can do is to bear responsibility, and know deep down that they can handle it, that they can handle their own bills, that they can handle life, and they have control over their life. To be able to pay your rent, to be able to buy your own food and not worry about it is huge for mental health. So my recommendation to anybody who's watching my channel who's saying, I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to dive deep into this indie game that I'm making, and I'm going to make a lot of money and I'm going to love it. You should know that it's very difficult to pay the bills with one indie game, let alone multiple indie games like Nate here. So if you're in a situation like that, go get a job. Just go get a job. Go get a job, a full-time job for a couple years, and work your butt off, continuing to make games. And then you'll get that portfolio going, and you'll figure out how you failed in the past, and you can finally start releasing games that, I hate to say it, but you focus on being commercially viable. That's what I would do. Focus on making a profitable game. That's not wrong, especially when you have a family and bills to pay. Figure out how to make a game that's profitable. And what that means is focusing on what's working right now in the markets. Specifically, you guys have heard me talk about this 1,000 times, streamability. Is your game streamable? Make your game something that streamers really love. And that's okay. As long as you can merge that with what you're passionate about, then you're making a game that's profitable, but it's also from your heart. So Nate, dude, I would say go get a full-time job. And it sounds like you don't have any other social commitments. So go ahead and work a full-time job. Wednesdays and Sundays or something, go to a church or something if you go to church, or go hang out at some bars and get a good community of people, or build a community at a gym or CrossFit. Start building friendships outside of game development and at work. And also say, okay, Mondays, Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, I'm making the best game I've ever made. And it's going to be from 5 p.m. to midnight on those days. So keep your social group while also saying, I'm going to commit to not being social at all on specific days, and I'm going to make a kick-ass game. And you could do it, Nate, because you've done it before. You've made games, but now you can actually make games and not worry about how it performs. The worst thing for your game, the absolute worst thing for your game, and I'm talking to all of you watching this, the worst thing for your game is caring about how it performs financially. That doesn't mean you can't focus on being smart and strategic about how it performs commercially. But if that's the only focus, you're going to make a crappy game. There's not going to be any heart in it. You're going to make a game that's a repeat of another game. And I've been there. So the worst thing you can do is struggle financially while making a game. So go get a full-time job. It doesn't mean you have to work in a factory, dude. I'm sure you can look around, find another job. Even if it's, waiting tables or something. Just enough money to bring in to not worry about money. And then make that game on the side. I think that'll really help you out. And one final thing, and I'll pump my arm muscle right now while I say it. No, I'm kidding. One final thing I told Nate, and you'll get my joke in just a second. One final thing I told Nate is to join a gym and work out every night, because the human mind, I'm getting chills. Why am I getting chills? I think it's because I recognize how important it was for me and my anxiety when I was making games. Join a gym or join a fitness community. Hey, it's a great place to meet potential partners for games and for marriage, right? And that's always good. But join a gym. The human mind is not meant to sit in front of a computer all effing day. The human mind is meant to experience the chemical rush we get when we work out. And I'm not saying like cavemen had to work out. I'm saying cavemen, they had to physically exhaust themselves on a daily basis just to survive. So our DNA is meant for that. So when we physically exhaust ourselves, it's good for our mental health. That way we can make games. Nate, this was a really good email. Can we all do something in the comments? Can we encourage Nate? Can we tell Nate that he's a valuable human being, that we love Nate, and that we wish him all the success in the world, and that we're there and we understand how he's feeling and what he's going through. Thanks, guys, so much for watching. If you like this video, please subscribe, please hit comment, hit the notification bell, and consider supporting me on Patreon and supporting Nate by clicking the links in the description. In fact, don't support me on Patreon. Just go to Nate's stuff. Just go to Nate's stuff.